Kelly for waking everybody up after lunch. I'm going to be presenting on experimental treatment of reed canary grass, Phalaris arundinacea. A little bit of background on this site. We are working up in the Eniat watershed, up on the Eniat River. This specific area is a small section of Stormy Reach. Chelan Douglas Land Trust owned or purchased this land back in the 2000s, I believe, and Chelan County Natural Resources started working with them sometime mid-2010s and implemented some restoration projects all along the reach 2020. So some of the restoration goals that we had were stream complexity, bank stabilization, and habitat restoration. And that included some riparian plantings. The implementation, they put in engineered log jams, riparian plantings, and we did some invasive control, which turned out to maybe not work so well. The purpose of these projects up there, increase salmon habitat and refuge and re-engage the disconnected floodplains. And as you see here, this is where our study is occurring. And that's a high flow drone photo from 2023. You can see that whole floodplain is inundated, and that is a perfect breeding ground for some reed canary grass. So a little bit about reed canary grass, or RCG. It is a perennial bunch grass. Its stems or its culms can get 6 to 7 feet tall. You can't even see through it. Sometimes you don't even know what you're walking into, including creeks. It forms dense rhizomatous mats that can be inches thick. I think I've seen some that are like 6 inches thick. Really difficult to plant into and deal with if you don't have some machinery with you. It spreads by seed and rhizomes. I primarily see that those rhizomes are really going for it. And that's what creates those really thick mats. And in sites where it's happy, it commonly forms extensive and dense monotypic stands. As you can see in that photo, it's another area on the Eniat with another reed canary problem. So why does controlling RCG matter in restoration? You could probably come up with a list of your own that's 10 or 15 items long. I just chose a few that have to do with salmon and with planting in those zones. So first of all, it competes, reed canary grass competes for nutrient and light availability. So it can shade out any of your little saplings that you put in the ground. It impacts insect diversity and trophic groups, which, salmon feed on these bugs. And having a monotypic stand of reed canary grass is not a great habitat for small bugs. And since they're so low on the totem pole, it affects a lot of different wildlife. It can impact hydrology of an area. Through evapotranspiration, it can lower the groundwater levels at your sites. It can constrict flows in ditches and rivers. And over time, it can reduce large woody debris recruitment. Some personal reasons of mine, as I'm sure you all have your own, allergies for me and my crewmates. Having to remove that thick rhizome mat when you're trying to plant into a reed canary zone, not so fun. And the infamous paper cuts. If you've ever tried hand pulling reed canary grass, not great. I had one that was infected last year. So our study design, the objective was doing a qualitative study, finding our best management practices protocol for RCG control up in the Eniat. The layout is 5 study plots. We did plot 1 is on the far right of that picture, if you can see it. That's mowing and solarization, and we used tarps for our solarization method. Plot 2, we chose just to mow in the spring and fall. And plot 3, we mowed in the spring and then laid down cardboard and about 3 inches of mulch. Plot 4 was mowing in spring and fall, herbicide in spring and fall, and then using a tarp for solarization. And finally, plot 5 was mowing and herbicide. We used glyphosate to spray. And the implementation was done this spring through the fall, and we removed the tarps before the snow flew, and we're going to be doing it again this next year. Here are before and after photos. You really need to use your imagination here. My coworker went out in the early spring, late summer last year and took the before picture, which is on the left, which you might not realize, but that's full of grass. It's just dead at that time. So there's a look under the tarp in the mow and tarp spot. That one had pretty good control that we saw for this year. Plot 2, you can see it's still quite vibrant and green. That was just mowing. Plot 3 was the mow, cardboard, and mulch. We didn't actually dig under the mulch to see how the grass was doing, but there was only a few culms that's shot through over the summer. Plot 4, the mow spray tarp, which had the highest success rate. And plot 5, which is right next to plot 4, had the mow and spray. A little bit less vibrant than just the mowing, but still alive. The results, treatment plot 1, mow and tarp, virtually no vegetative growth. It was limited to the outer edges of the tarp, and the rhizome mat was dying back, it seemed. Treatment plot 2, mowing, it had limited vegetation growth. It was always under 12 inches, and we did not observe any flowers or it seeding. It still seemed to have its rhizome intact. Treatment plot 3 was the mow cardboard mulch, and that one, virtually no vegetative growth that we saw, only a few culms that were shooting up, and we did not assess the rhizome. Plot 4, the mow spray tarp, that one was the best in our study for that year. No vegetative growth in the plot, and the rhizome mat looked very dead when we were last out there. And then plot 5, mow and spray, did similarly to the mowing, where it had limited vegetative growth, 12-inch max, and did not flower or seed. And we did not notice any observed rhizome depletion, but we'll be doing it again this year, and I think there will be. So some of the lessons learned, the 3-pronged approach we did of the mow spray tarp was the most effective through year 1. Laying cardboard and mulch was the most labor intensive, and I say that, but I did not do the work. Treatments involving either only mowing or mowing and spraying may be effective controls, and probably easier to do those ones when you've already planted. And long-term, they should help aid in establishing a native overstory. The tarping and solarization is effective in smaller, dense monocultures of reed canary grass. It may be difficult to implement in very large areas, which I'm sure we have a few very large areas that would not make sense to tarp the whole thing. And if you do already have native vegetation, it's hard to move those tarps around and without killing what you planted. And most importantly, pre and post restoration invasive control is very important. Getting off on the right foot, and then not just leaving your site to nature. You can really help your site and your plants come along if you are doing some post restoration invasive control. Are there any questions?
Hey, quick question. Was there an analysis of cost?
So the analysis of cost, we didn't do it post, but I think that decision, the deciding factor for some of the reasons we did the study we did and how and what methods we chose, were decided beforehand. to assess what the cost was and what was most effective in terms of cost.
Neat to see you comparing these methods and doing them concurrently. I just wanted to share that in places where I've suppressed root grass with that really hot, like 60 mil low density
Mhm.
wildlands, so very, very thick turf, suppressing it for more than 1 year seems to have the same impact that combo herbicide and suppression has. So for people who are trying to avoid herbicide, if you suppress others, you'll see a dramatic decrease in the vigor of the rice.
That's great to know. I'm excited to see year two go through. Thank you.
Not a question, but an anecdote. I did cardboard and wood mulch on part of my yard that has a very well-established turf grass easement behind it, and it killed it. But also the weeds or grass that come through are way easier to pull out.
Mm.
This wasn't a method that projects where
I've never tried that, but I have read that those rhizomes are probably going to grow back, but it will keep it at bay for a little bit and longer.
I think there was hemlock dam had grass what? It's got to be a lot. We have two other people.
I think it could be successful if you just did one spray. Yeah. Stephen, do you have any comments about why we chose two? Mm-hmm.
want to yell or you want a mic?
I'm just curious if you connected at all with or considered using fire or
I think that would be a great method. I like the idea of using fire. Stephen can answer that.
So for this particular this position all up with herbicide treatment and soil.
Thank you.
Thank you.